So information is definitely important for complexity. If we want to address complex systems, we have to understand their informational structures and their relationships inside the system. So complex system can be found between orderly system like a crystal with high information compressibility. You know, because the crystal is repeating the same structure all the time. So you can say n times the same structure. You can compress this information. And low information content in random systems with low compressibility and high information content. So if it is totally random, you must describe each and every one. If there is no law that describes automatically where you have your system. However, there are also generative models to produce complex systems from simple rules and simple relationships. So one part of this is complexity generated from cellular automata. Some sort of complexity is generated after repeating the same simple rule many times. And also, the very new and interesting approach to this complexity problem is network approach. So you establish the relationships between different parts of systems and subsystems in between. So you have networks of similar type in proteins, in yeast cell, in human protein interaction network. There is a human connector, which is a sort of networks that we have in our brains, and other animals with brains have it as well. Social networks could also be studied as network structures, and they could be complex networks. So I would use the definition from Mark Bergen, who says that the most general type of computation is information processing. That will say that information dynamics is the same thing as computation. So that's the most general thing. If you have any system, physical system, or biological system, or cognitive system, all of them could be said to process information on different levels, as I mentioned, the deep. So information processing integrated with computation give us the broadest possible approach to computation. So that's what is called natural computation. And we see informational structure with computational dynamics. So we use two basic elements or two basic ideas. Information, which will be data interrelated into structures, and computation, which would be changes in informational structures, different sorts of dynamics in information. So I mentioned natural computation. So if you see all of the processes in nature as information processes, that will say computation. That sort of computation is called natural computation. And we have a handbook of natural computing, a huge volume with all the different sorts of systems represented as computational systems, from membranes to neural networks to cellular automata, other things. So this is a very, very valuable contribution to the development of computing, quite new in 2012 published. And the main editor is Grzegorz Rosenberg. So when we talk about information, necessarily we come to cognition, because at least when we think about humans, this cognition, this ability to process information is directly connected to the sources of information and availability and so on. So we know that we have 100 billions of neurons connected within our brains. And they are in total longer, more than 2 times the Earth's length. The whole length is impressive. So these neural circuits are responsible for whatever we have for knowledge or cognition or responsibility for environment and so on. As we are really in the process of changing the paradigm when we think about what is information, what is knowledge, what is computation, I was searching in how people understand cognition, how people define knowledge and so on. So there is still this classical old idea of cognition as a processes of perceiving, reasoning, decision-making, and thinking. And all in brain's way of processing information to create meaning or make sense for somebody, for an agent. It could be biological agent, it could be some simpler agent like AI agent. It's interesting that in 1980, Maturana and Varela, Santiago School of Chile's School of Cognition, claimed that cognition actually is completely identical with life. So any organism, whatever simple organism there is, alive is a cognitive system. Those are the levels of cognition. So today we have learned much more than they knew in the 80s. So we know that bacteria, they are all really cognitive systems. They learn when they are in hills or in colonies or in networks. They learn, they make decisions. They have some sort of walking, which is called sense of form sensing, which means that a lot of different bacteria negotiate about the state they are in and about what they are going to do the next step. So they are really learning, and they learn to be resistant to antibiotics. So that's a big problem for us. And there are new ideas how to fight against bacteria so that we cut off their communication ways. Because the cognition is actually distributed, and it's a competition between different nodes. Those bacteria, they are nodes in communication network. So the way to stop them is to stop their communication. There are already medicines working on disturbing their communication. But anyway, we are learning about cognition as a process in any sort of organism. And also, in parallel, we are constructing machines. There is a field which is called cognitive computing, developing very quickly these days. This is an example of cognitive network technology, which is a sort of attempt to use inspiration from nature to solve the problems of information processing technological systems. So this system must be able to observe, to orient itself in the environment, to make decisions, to act accordingly, and to learn as well from the experiences. So I mentioned that nature computes, and there is an old story about evolution and the problems. Why evolution is much faster than it would be if it would be just a random walk. And missing links would be self-organization. So a combination between self-organization and evolution gives us what we see, a variety of organisms and cognitive systems in nature. So we can look at knowledge as a result of information processing in nature, in different sorts of natural agents, which learn to take information from the world and to use it to survive and to try and grow.